control these to create the communication, get the effective communication you want in your organization, and improve your results. Sharon Hornell here. Welcome to day 100 of our Supersize Your Business Annual Challenge. Today and all this month, we're focusing on the area of communication. Why? Because like confidence, it's one of those foundational skills that if we don't have it handled and set the example for the rest of our organization, we are in big trouble because our whole organization will falter. Now, I don't know about you, but I spent most of my corporate career being triggered and most of my probably first 20 years in businesses being triggered. And I didn't always respond in the best way. I had strategies. I developed strategies pretty quickly, both in corporate America and in my businesses, to handle those emotions and be in control of them instead of letting them control me. Because I learned early on with a couple of experiences that somebody doing and saying something to you, and then you emotionally responding when you're in the height of the negative emotions or impact that it's had on you, doesn't usually turn out well. It can, but sometimes it doesn't. I watched a lot of people in corporate America early in my career. Some kind of an emergency would happen, usually like somebody would cut a finger off or a medical type emergency online on the production line. And the vast majority of the managers would freak out and lose their heads and not be able to do anything, because when emotions are high, and this works the same on super duper high good emotions, as well as, when you're in love, sometimes things blurt out of your mouth. When you're in anxiety, hate, frustration, or somebody triggers you by hurting your feelings, you might respond emotionally too. So both high and low emotions can cause us to communicate in a way that we don't necessarily want to. There's a difference between being vulnerable and just spewing everything instantly. And I think we all can tell the difference between those people, right? Now, this is coming from a woman whose entire family for at least the first couple decades of my life used to say, pop the cork, Sherry, because I was definitely an emotive, volatile little person. It took me a while to control it and learn. Now, how do I do that? How do you do that? How do I recommend you do that? And why do I say that this is important? We set the example for everyone in our organization, whether we believe it or not. People are always watching us. They're watching what we do. They're watching how we lead. They're watching how we do everything. I've worked with several organizations and corporate teams that had a problem with tardiness. Well, when you dig in a little deeper and you find out that the team leader or the manager or the leader of the organization is late all the time, guess what happens? That gives everyone else in the organization unwritten permission to be late and show up when they kind of get to it and feel like it. It makes nothing a priority. And that's pretty easy to fix. You fix the root of the problem, which is often the bottleneck, which is often the founder or the leader of the organization. And once they start setting the example and sharing the expectation, then everything else and everyone else falls in line. It's how we can really positively impact our culture and the way things are done in our organization on a really subtle level. We don't have to just confront everybody about everything. We just set the example and encourage people when they're following the example, and give people feedback in private when they're not following the example. That's one of the fastest, easiest ways to get over an attendance or a tardiness problem. And it's directing the person that's offending or doing the thing. So often in corporate America, leaders and managers, instead of talking to the one person that's late all the time and setting a bad example for everybody else and dealing with their challenge, they create a rule or a process for everybody. Guess how well that works? Everybody in the organization already knows the one person who's always late. And so if you're writing a new procedure then that negatively impacts everybody or threatens punishment, please stop. Please stop doing that right now. All right. So keep in mind, when emotions are high, IQ goes down. Do we want to be responding from a low IQ standpoint? No, because our emotions, when they're triggered in a positive or negative way, will kind of shut the thinking part of our brain down, at least our short-term memory and things. And that is not how we want to respond. So how do I do this? And I've had to come up with a lot of strategies for handling my emotions over the years in corporate America. I worked for a company that had 7 different unions. And if you know my personality at all, I just do stuff. And so about once a week, I was sitting in a grievance meeting because somebody in one of the unions would grieve something that I did or said. And I honestly think it was part of their way of, slowing me down and shutting me down. because I was there to make a lot of changes in that particular organization. All right. So what are we going to do today? We are going to think about and pay attention to a situation when somebody triggers us. And I can pretty much guarantee, if you're like me, sometime during the day, somebody or something is going to trigger you. I'm in an intense training for 8 hours today and tomorrow and the next day. And I guarantee that there will be some things that trigger me just like everyone else in the group. And so I'm preparing myself to know that if something feels off to me, instead of emotionally responding, I'm going to take a pause. I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to make myself take a deep breath and count to 4. Breathe in through my nose, then count of 4, hold it for 4, then breathe out through my mouth for a count of 4, and then pause another 4 seconds before I ever even think of responding. It's my way to pull myself in, be present, let the emotion roll through my body, because usually in 16 seconds or less, it'll do it. And then I'm in a position to answer back or respond to the event that triggered me in a much more professional, much calmer, and more confident way than if I just respond emotionally. I do things, I'm stressed, like keep little things around my office to remind me to inhale, exhale, repeat. Inhale, exhale, repeat. Because I want to, I'm going to see all the plaques today, dream big and create the business and the life and the things that I want. And I think most of you do too, or you wouldn't be listening to me. So today, I want you to consciously practice pausing before responding, especially in a highly charged emotional way, either positive or negative, right? Maybe something awesome happens and you land a whale client today and you're super excited. Even before you respond to that, to the person that just delivered that news, which is a really positive trigger, slow down, take the deep breaths, and pause before responding. I think that 90% of the conflicts we have with other human beings could be alleviated and eliminated altogether if we would just practice this, practice the pause and then respond. Hey, sometimes I've had to just say, give me a minute, let me run to the bathroom, I'll be right back, because that buys me more than 16 seconds to actually think about how I want to respond to the thing that happened or the thing that was said. All right. That is our challenge for today. Share in the comments below, maybe the thing that triggered you, and if you paused to respond, and then was there a difference? Did you see a noticeable difference? And I'm willing to bet that you will when you do that versus just immediately responding. If you start demonstrating that for everybody in your organization, watch the ripple effect of positive changes that roll through your organization. If I can help you with this or anything else in scaling, growing, and building your business, just ask. I've got a Skool community that I am launching in the next 2 weeks. A very cool offer in that, in addition to what I've already got in there. I think it's going to be exciting, and I'm excited to have you see it and at least give me some feedback on it. If you'd be interested in that, just put Supersize in the comments below and we can have a little chat. I'm doing research, just research chats, I call it, a couple of minutes to talk about, things that I want and that you want to see included in that offer so that your absolute specific needs are met. All right. Have an awesome day. And I'll, of course, be with you tomorrow.